Does everybody know what time it is?
Uptime!
That's right. FleetPride is proud to present Jason the Fleetman Morgan.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Jason the Fleetman Morgan. Thanks for being with us here on Uptime. We're talking e-commerce in the heavy-duty world, buying parts online. We know you're doing it, right? But you want to make sure you're getting the right part. That can be difficult. The price online could look great. The product info could be, well, it seems right? But you don't want to make assumptions and you want to get the right part the first time. How does that all work? Well, we're going to talk with Ken Clinchy, Vice President of Digital and Marketing at FleetPride, who's going to take us through things to look for, best practices when buying online, and maybe what else you can do to make sure you're getting that right part. So here we go. Let's connect with Ken. Hey, Ken, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Looking forward to diving into some e-commerce topics here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be back.
So where I want to start, I know we've talked about this before, but I kind of want to come at it from what fleet managers would expect, maybe transitioning from that relationship parts buying experience they have, right? So I know my parts person, I buy from them. I want to bring the ease and access and availability of e-commerce and buying parts online. What should I expect when purchasing parts online, and maybe how does that compare to that relationship in-store experience I've had?
Yeah, the in-store experience is what we're all used to, and there's absolutely some benefits, right? The personal service, the relationship you mentioned, the ability to physically inspect a part, right? And that availability. Hey, I'm holding the part in my hands, and I know that I've got it. And so how do you transition that into a digital purchasing experience? So for us, what we really try to do is blend the two so it feels very similar. So first and foremost, when you talk about the personal service, one, we route, for instance, all of our orders through our local branches. So even though you're placing your orders through a website, that order is still fulfilled by, whether it be Tom on the counter or John or whoever you have that personal connection with. And so they're still able to see what you're ordering. They can make changes to that order if they know, hey, you've got a preference for something else. So that's how we sort of maintain that personal touch. The other way that we do it is through offering expert chat advisors. And so this is something really big because obviously the personal service is great, having that connection. But what you're really after is the expertise, right? You want that 30 years of parts knowledge. This is nuance for your truck, so let's make sure that we get you the right part. And so the other way that we offer that is through putting folks on chat that are parts experts. And so those are available to you anytime that you'd like between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. for us. But it's really a way to offer that connection and that expertise. From the physical inspection standpoint, and we'll get more into this later, but one of the challenges there is how do we provide you with a similar experience where you can be confident in what you're buying? So, that's access to product data, product images, 3D drawings, anything that we can give you that, again, you can't touch or feel it, but you can get confident with the product based on the specs that, you're looking at. And then the last one is availability. And this is an interesting one because one, it goes back to working with a vendor that you trust, right? When they say that it's in stock, it's really in stock, and in stock means sitting on the shelf in the branch. And so one, we make that very clear online, and we try to be as accurate as possible. Now, I'll tell you, we have our challenges with inventory, just like everyone else, right? We carry a huge amount of parts, but we really try to be upfront and transparent with our customers on, hey, we have it and you can get it. But the other thing that digital gives you that you miss sometimes in that local interaction is, yeah, I may not have it in your local branch, but I might have it 30 miles down the road. I might have it 300 miles down the road in my distribution center, and I can get it to you, this quickly. And that piece of it, I think, is a big advantage to be able to see the wider range of products and availability online. That's harder to visualize in an offline setting.
Right, for sure. A couple things I want to dive in there too, because I think they're good points to make. One, about keeping the branches in the loop, delivering from those points. But from a user standpoint, like if I'm on the FleetPride site buying parts, that's somewhat invisible to me in the parts process, right? When I'm buying parts, I click the button like I usually would expect on e-commerce, and you do all the magical technical wizardry to get that through to the branch, right, on your side? Or do I have to put that number in and then contact my branch and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We handle all of that on our end. So when you submit that order and you hit, buy now,
Right.
we then take that order and figure out, hey, does that need to go to a local branch? Do we need to source that from a nearby branch, a distribution center, whatever that may be? And then we just send you an order confirmation and tell you, hey, this is when it's going to be ready. This is when you can pick it up. This is when it'll be delivered, depending on what you had selected.
Right.
And so it sort of takes all of that coordination out of it, and makes it really easy to track your order from purchase to receipt.
Right, right. Okay. And then the other thing I want to follow up with the chat on the website. This is a chat with a real human, right? There's
Yes,
someone actually
yes.
sitting there chatting with me. FleetPride employee.
It is a FleetPride employee, and it's a FleetPride employee that worked on a parts counter. And this is unique. We don't use any chat bots. You're never going to talk to an offshore support center. Everyone in our chat organization are FleetPride employees. And when you get on the part side, of course, we have folks that'll help you if you forget your password and things like that. But when you get on the part side, these are folks who have been on the counter for 30 or 40 years. And they now help people virtually. And it's essentially a virtual parts counter is the best way to think about it. And they're able to leverage all that knowledge and then point you in the right direction online to make the purchase very quickly.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. One, to maintain that kind of legacy knowledge and expertise, right? And then two, I mean, I appreciate the clarification because you never quite know. I mean, I go on sites, I'm chatting. I don't know, how what the test is. So it's cool to know that's real people back there. So the other thing, okay, purchasing online, I'm doing a search, right? And sometimes things can look really good, right? And you think you're getting the right part, but what are some of those common mistakes that you've seen happen buying heavy duty parts that people should avoid?
Yeah, there's a few of them that we see very often. So one, probably the number one that we hear from fleet managers is completeness of a kit, right? So oftentimes what one person calls a kit, another person may call something different. And you want to make sure that you know precisely what you're getting in the box, in that kit, and that you're not getting, if you're expecting a landing leg and the gear, that you're not just getting the landing leg, right? And so oftentimes you will see that. And that's one thing, a point of frustration that we hear from, fleet managers around, hey, we want to know exactly what we're getting so that when we order it and it shows up, the chances are we got the right part. And so that's one thing that we see that can be a challenge. And we try to get over that by offering, here's the bill of materials, here's what's in that kit. And if you have any questions, I go back to the chat. Hey, ask the chat guys. They're more than happy to let you know exactly what's in there. The next one is really around fitment, right? And this is just a challenge in general in our industry. Product data is not standardized in the heavy duty space. We're trying to do that. We're part of the council around heavy duty data standards. And really, the reason we push that and the reason it's so important to us is for the customer, because if we can all get to standard data, it makes it far easier for us to tell the customer, hey, when you're looking at a valve, here's the 4 attributes that will always be on every valve, right? Your inlet, your outlet ports, the location of the ports, that type of thing. And so in lack of that, we produce our own data and supplement our own data and really trying to put different assets online that will get a customer comfortable with making the purchase. Because again, even with the kit example, it all goes back to buying the wrong part, right? Because the most frustrating thing you can do is order a part. And this, in fairness, this happens in person too, right? If you go into a branch and the counter guy recommends something, but you forgot to mention that, hey, I upgraded the alternator from the factory and therefore I actually need, different cabling. These things happen even in offline scenarios. But That's really the worst thing. Hey, I've got a truck down. I thought I had the right part. I get back to the shop. It's the wrong part. Now I got to order another part. That's incredibly frustrating. And so we're really trying to solve that online with giving them as much information, as much data as possible so that they can solve that. The other piece of it is we've got some things that are launching this year that will walk customers through the selection process on certain complex part types. And that, again, it's all about how do we get information to customers? How do we allow them to figure out and feel confident with the parts that they're buying?
Right, right. Well, and on one side, if I'm the fleet buying parts, right, I have to not make assumptions on what's coming in that listing, right? If I'm looking at a page online, I can't just assume, okay, it's going to come with all this, it's going to come with all that. Yeah, it kind of looks right. I mean, I've been down that road too, where I've just even bought parts in my personal world, and they show up like, well, that's not going to work because this thing's a little off, and I made this assumption over here. You mentioned the data standards, and I know that's a growing push here in the aftermarket segment as well. As those develop, right, and you're creating your own information there, what should I expect in terms of product dimensions, specs, information when going online in the shop for parts? What should I be looking for to make sure I get that right part?
So a couple of things. Specs is a big one, right, and that's really going to vary by product. And so I can't say exactly what specs. It would depend on the product we're talking about. If it's brake drums, it's brake shoe diameter, it's inboard, outboard, all of those things. And so really what we're trying to get to is where, again, if you're looking at a brake drum, here's the 4 or 5 specs that you would expect to see. So that's one way to go about it. The second way is really around cross-reference. So our industry is just built on part numbers and cross-references. So having those cross-references loaded in your system can also give confidence to, hey, I was able to pull the number off the part. Now let me find a part that you have in stock that fits that. And that's really where cross-reference comes in and plays a really big role. So that's probably the cleanest and easiest way today if you look at the data that we have in our industry. The third is probably around actual fitment. So again, year, make, model, engine, which works obviously fantastic in automotive, but is challenging in heavy duty because, again, fleets spec different things off the line. It's hard to know what's standard. But there are, a number of parts where you can use your make, model, engine to get you down to 1 or 2 parts that would fit and can get you really close. And then from there, you're just looking at the specs to say, okay, well, I know that, the weight rating on this is 23,000. The one on this is 20. I need 23. And so you can make that decision. And so really, again, it comes down to the cleanest route is still cross-reference, but we're trying to bring in other data elements like specs, like fitment, that can get you much closer. And then you can look at it and maybe it's simply an image, right? You may look at the image and go, oh, that port's right there. That's what I'm looking for. That will fit. And so, the images play a big role in it as well.
Right. Well, and again, I go back to chat, right? Because that counter person, it's been such a trusted, needed person for so long. Nice to continue that through. The other fun part about the digital world, right, is you can integrate and streamline things, right? So
Yes.
With online parts buying, though, how can that integrate with someone's procure to pay process? How does that work?
So this is something that we hear from a lot of fleet managers is, hey, we love buying from you, but I'm using Coupa, Ariba, Trimble, you name it, and we want to be able to integrate, right? And so for those customers that are using procurement systems, we go through a very detailed process of identifying the correct solutions. So there's a number out there, right? EDI has been around for 30 years. It's not exactly cutting edge, although it is digital. But the newest, the latest and greatest is really around punch out. That's what a lot of folks want to integrate. And you'll hear APIs mentioned, punch out. Really all it is they're going from their procurement system into FleetPride system to see what's in stock, what can I get, how can I search for it? And then they're going to bring that item back into their procurement system, and it's going to automatically generate a PO, go through whatever approval process they have on their side, and then shoot that back to FleetPride for fulfillment. And so it's fantastic for the fleets because, again, they have their own challenges with accounts payable. And this is the cleanest way to make sure that, hey, you sent me an order for 4 items. I sent you back confirmation of those 4 items. and you know exactly what you got. Your inventory is accurate. We don't have any challenges around payables, and you're not trying to run down invoices. And because the challenge today is with manual invoicing and paper, hey, I gave it to so-and-so, or I dropped it off with this guy, he signed it, but now I can't find it. And so it creates a lot of challenges. So being able to integrate into those procurement systems is really key. The other piece of it is for smaller fleets or fleets that haven't invested in procurement systems, we try to offer solutions through FleetPride.com that allow them to do what I would call sort of procurement light. So things like approving orders. So you can set it up to say, hey, I'm the parts buyer. I can put it through up to a certain amount, and then I need approval from my supervisor. And we will actually send that email, tell the supervisor, hey, this is ready. They can approve it. And again, it just gives them that control over the spend versus picking up the phone and I don't really know what you're going to buy. I don't know how much you're going to buy. And I don't know that we gave you a valid PO. And so, again, we try to meet customers where they want to buy, whether it's very sophisticated with the procurement system or they would like to use FleetPride's in-house tools. We can help them with both of those things.
Right. Well, Ken, you gave me exactly what I was looking for here, so I appreciate that. Always great catching up with you. I'm sure we'll talk with you very soon again as more e-commerce just continues to build.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again.
There you go. Useful tips for buying heavy-duty parts online. You know what? I got to say, my favorite part is keeping that knowledgeable counter person involved in the process. I think it's this thing that we can feel a little disconnected on the part side. It can be a little too good to be true on some sites, right? But man, I love just keeping that institutional knowledge, that legacy knowledge there, making sure you're getting the right part, streamlining it, kind of the best of both worlds. Anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to be here. And until next time, you know what time it is.
Uptime!